recording this, so I have like I'll put this up in the just sort of for my own notes. Um, but are you finding this, or how are you finding the MOOC? I guess that's my question.
I'm enjoying it. I had taken a no, a Scratch MOOC just before this.
Uh-huh.
And so what I needed was something to help me make the transition from Scratch to Snap. And this is working out well.
Okay. So I
And like,
take this wasn't this you weren't taking the one simultaneously that we're offering in Scratch, is that right?
no, the one that I took with Scratch, I took through University of Northern Iowa,
Okay.
and it's a Google funded program as well.
Uh-huh.
And so the Scratch one, initially I debated whether to take it for credit, but I was concerned that I would have to step into the session late, and I was concerned about time.
Right.
So for that reason, I just took it for my own development.
Mm-hmm. Remind me, are you taking this one? This is Carrie talking, right?
This is Christy.
Oh, I'm sorry. See, I have no way to identify who's talking. Okay, so Christine, are you doing this one for credit or just for interest?
No, I would have liked to have done it for credit, but like I said, I wasn't sure that it might be too much, that maybe it was going to be too much pressure. I had some concerns, so I just took it for my own development, and it has been a nice introduction to Snap.
It has been which?
It's been a nice introduction to Snap,
Oh, good.
especially coming from scratch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. By the way, I just discovered I can tell who's talking. I just have to look in the audio. It says who's talking. Um, the yeah. Since this has been my first time teaching this, and teaching this, well, not teaching this material necessarily, but definitely teaching this style, I found it sort of uh, challenging because I feel so disconnected from my students. And I don't know what the rest of you think about this. I mean, how have the rest of you been finding this MOOC? Anyone want to wade
I
in?
already had experience with Snap.
Mm-hmm.
I already had experience with Snap, so it seemed a bit easy, especially on the projects when it gives you each step that you need to do. It
Right.
didn't really require any thinking.
Yeah. I have a very wide range of people taking this. And one of the challenges to me was to try and figure out which level of student to address. And I sort of went for people who had pretty minimal amounts of programming experience, and that's why the projects are written like they are. I didn't have a good mechanism for sort of delivering multiple levels of um, content at the same time, and I face that problem every day in when I'm in a face-to-face situation with students. And I don't know if you have the same problem, but I have in my classes. I sort of have the super geniuses, and then I have people who are really totally novice, and it's like, well, do I teach the novices and bore the geniuses? Do I teach the geniuses and lose the novices? And I want to make sure that everyone gets something out of it. But yeah, so James, what was your tell me a little bit about your background.
I had a minor in computer science from University of Delaware, and I'm currently working at Appoquinimink High School as a computer science and math teacher.
I see. What do you teach in the classroom in computer?
In Computer Science 1, I've been doing like a modified version of the Exploring Computer Science curriculum, and with Scratch, I've been trying to find a substitute for that the students will think is more grown up. So I think Snap is probably going to be a better choice. And then in Computer Science 2, I've only taught it once so far, and I used Dr. Racket following the Bootstrap curriculum.
Okay.
And Computer Science 3 is an introduction into Java, and then AP Computer Science is doing the more advanced Java.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were just having a discussion about programming languages. I gather that Python is, at least at the universities, slowly displacing Java as a language, although I don't know how that affects AP stuff. But one of the one site that I had mentioned, I'll just sort of bring this up here. It is there's this awesome site. It's called The Beauty, Joy, and Awe of Computer Science, and it's taught by a guy named Dan Garcia at UC Berkeley. And some of this stuff is pretty sophisticated, but there's a lot of material here, and I've chosen selectively some of the stuff. But this is like a whole course, which could be used as sort of a CS principles course, which you might I think everyone could probably get something out of this. At least that's my theory. And let me see. Anyone else want to weigh in on the level of or what you thought about the MOOC? What was the best part? What was the worst part?
I'm kind of the opposite of James. I had no idea what I was doing, absolutely no idea. And so the step-by-step directions were a great help to me.
Okay. And let's see, who have I not heard? Have I? Okay, so Rupali, you just joined us. Hello.
Yes. Hi.
And we're just talking about the MOOC and trying to figure out what the best and worst aspects of it were. What are your thoughts?
I really liked the step-by-step approach, and that's what I'm thinking of doing in my classes as well.
Okay.
Only thing I need help at this point is, I asked this one earlier as well, that how I can post these programs, or you can say games, that students created. Is there a way I can post those on classroom website, or so basically they can share with each other?
Yeah, so basically, I think what you can do, and this is one of the places we seem to have had issues doing this. But for example, let's say I had a project that I'll just have it do something. Let's just say play a note. Success. Okay. So then what I would do is, oh no, I have to log in. Shoot. Hang on. There will be a brief delay because I can never remember all my passwords. And all right, so all right, so I'm going to log in here. Oh, it won't paste it. Drat. That is so rude. I am in.
Well, maybe while you're doing that, I'm interested in knowing what other MOOC other folks are taking. Is it okay if I ask that question to the group while you're logging in?
You certainly may. I just have a question. Can anyone see you're just seeing my main screen, right?
We're watching you. It says sign in. We can see your snap screen.
Okay, but you can't see anything that says keychain access?
No,
Oh,
I
good.
can't. Anyway.
Okay, all right. I'm going to assume that this is safe, so carry on.
Okay. What other MOOCs are folks taking? We're probably, if I'm saying your name right, I apologize if I'm not. I think I've seen your name in another MOOC.
In another what?
At another MOOC?
Like another workshop or another track of this one?
I'm doing CS4HS, and then I'm doing Snap and Scratch. I took both Scratch and Snap here.
Okay. Wait, so just with this university?
I registered one other place which was mentioned in CSH4HS, but I couldn't understand that site, and then I dropped from there. I couldn't understand that one.
Okay.
So this is the place I have been finishing Snap and Scratch. I'm taking Python in a community center here. My basic background is computer science, and but for last 8 years I have been teaching math, so I kind of forgot everything, and it will be first time I will be teaching it.
And of course, everything in computer science changes. So even though, I mean, the principles stay the same, but there's a tremendous amount that changes in terms of the details.
Yes, yes. Snap, Scratch, and Python all were different.
Right.
Yeah, I was doing it. It was Fortran, C, and last project we did it was in C++. So
See, now, if you were to talk to like somebody in business and ask them, you know, what programming languages should their students know, they'd probably rattle off a bunch, and they would definitely not mention Snap or Scratch. But
no.
the reason for doing these packages is because the ideas in them are really the same. I mean, if you do some sort of a repeat loop, it's basically the idea of doing repetition or the idea of using an if-else block to make a decision. Those you do those in all those different languages. It's just a matter of the fine details, but the concept is sort of universal.
Yes.
So let me
really like Snap program, the way it goes, and it can really help and make them understand those things.
Yeah, I find it pretty elegant. I'm going to just demonstrate. So we were talking about making this available to students.
Yes.
So first you'd save it, and I'm just going to call this last webinar, and I'm assuming everyone can see this now. So I save it, and if I were to go and open it, I would see it here, and then I can go ahead and I can share it. And if I publish it, it's now been shared, and if I look at my link right now, if you look here at the top of my Safari, it doesn't indicate that. But if I then choose on open, and this sounds a little weird, but you have to sort of reopen it. And then you notice that the URL has changed. And I can take that URL and I can publish it and send it places. Although sometimes I have problems with this, but I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to go ahead and send this to everybody. And in theory, you should be able to click on that and open it up.
Okay.
Now, the other way you can do things, if you don't want to do it that way, you can choose Export Project. And if you choose Export Project, you get what looks like junk, but in fact, you can choose Save As, and it'll be an XML file. Safari is not doing a good job of rendering this. If you do this in Firefox, it looks better. They have like tags, and it looks more like appropriate. But anyways, so I could call this last webinar.xml. So this file now, you could go ahead and you could, if you have a way of sending files to students, you could send this file to them. I'm just going to save it. Actually, I'll go ahead and put it in my Snap Workshop folder just so I have it. And so I'll go ahead and save it. And then if I were to, back in Snap, I could then simply go ahead and, so I exported the project. Now I'm going to import. So I go to import, and then there's my last webinar, and I choose it. And now it says opening projects, and that's the last webinar. So there are two ways to do it. One is if you don't want to deal with the actual project, just go ahead and save it on the cloud, share it, and then open it, and then pass that URL around. And the second way is if you export the project and then re-import it. If you export the project, you get an actual file that you can pass back and forth.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Let me see. I don't know if there's anyone else here who wants to weigh. Terry, did you weigh in on the question of, how did you find the MOOC?
I've really enjoyed it. I'm also taking the App Inventor.
Mm-hmm.
That it's more of a challenge, I felt like, because I'd taken, I think, 3 of the Scratch workshops when they were down in Liberty.
Mm-hmm.
And so Snap, it was a really good transition for me, but I like to be able to watch the video. I usually just went by the video. Sometimes I would go back and look at the the documents, but
Mm-hmm.
it's been very smooth for me. I like it being up on YouTube. I have been saving the links so that I can go back and look at those and as I get ready with the students.
All
So.
right, I'm going to be a star. I can tell you, it's just been wondrous to my ego to do this, to do the YouTube bit. Um, I've been using a product called ScreenFlow, and it's just delightfully easy to use. So I think it's only a Mac product, but for those of you who happen to have Macs, if you ever find yourself in the situation of needing to make videos, it's just the most effortless thing. Let's see, um, it's from a company called Telestream, and it's a little bit pricey, but it's very nice. And this is the product for anyone who happens to be interested in it. And you can, like it says, you can publish to a whole bunch of places, and apparently you can do like live sort of stuff. So I think I may have found my calling. I don't know. Um, do you think so? As all of you look at this, do you think you're going to be, and will you be using Snap in the classroom? Do you think you're going to be able to use Snap? Wait, somebody has their hand up. Rupali, it looks like you have your hand up.
Sorry, I'm looking at what these are.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I will be using Snap.
Okay. Um, and how about the rest of you? I know we can do this. Show of hands. How many of you think you'll be using Snap in the classroom? All
Where's my
right.
hand? Where's my hand?
I could make a very bad joke there, but is there? So I've got something here that shows attendee. I don't know what it looks like honestly on the presenter on the viewer side. Well, James, where'd you find the hand?
It's up to the left of the sidebar where you see all the attendees and who's talking. It's one of the round buttons.
Okay. Does it look like a hand?
Yes, underneath
Yeah.
the mute
I
button.
found it.
Carrie found it. Elise, did you? Is it that you? Oh, you found it. Okay, okay, you found it. So all of you think you'll be able to use this in the classroom? Right?
I found it. I just don't know. Maybe I teach English, and so what you did with Shakespeare was really cool. But we are adopting a lot of things next year, so I don't know if that's one more thing that I want to throw at the kids. But it's something that I'll definitely keep in mind, in the back of my mind to think about using.
Mm-hmm. I think if you're, I'm sorry, I missed who was talking. Is that who just answered that?
I think I did. Elise.
Okay, okay, thanks, Elise. Yeah, I don't know if you saw that last example. I don't know if I did this in the video or if I did this in the document or both, but when I was working with lists, the idea of making sort of random sentences.
Oh.
Did you
I
see
haven't had a chance to look at it yet.
Okay, so I gave an example where it might have just been in the video, and I hate to do spoilers, but basically you had a list of nouns, a list of adjectives, a list of adverbs, a list of prepositions, and a list of articles. And you could, of course, you remember that in Snap, when you're working with a list, you have the ability to pick an item, a particular number, or you can just pick any. So I had the script would pick various items from each one of those lists, concatenate them together, and you would get a sentence. And it's not very sophisticated English, but it was sort of more of an English-like context.
It might get my kids a little bit more interested in grammar, so I like that idea.
Yeah, and if you have there are a lot of things that might be able to sort of work. It'd be interesting to see what you can do working with Snap and working with because when people think about Snap, I don't know if they think about using it in an English context, and it might therefore be slightly harder to find examples. But it would be interesting I think it would be interesting to try and sort of come up with something. Um, you might have a whole series of examples that are sort of um, motivated based on they would all involve English in one respect or another. So I don't know if you want to think about doing that. I don't know exactly how this would work, but we could look at like various things that you do in your curriculum and say, could we wrap Snap around that?
I like that idea.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll have to figure out how to do this. And okay, I have a question from James. Do you think the assigned projects are appropriate forms of assessment? James, do you mean are you talking about the graduate credit and the professional development credit, or are you talking about for assessing your students?
Talking about for assessing my students. So if you were to use them in the class, would you think they're appropriate for an assessment?
Um, well, it depends. I would think. You mean so? You're talking specifically about the projects that we created,
Um, like I think, in my opinion, these would be good tutorials and practice for like classwork.
right?
But for the actual graded assessment, like in the Scratch course, they have like a Project 3 and then a Project 3A, where the second version it says you need to use these certain types of blocks or blocks from these categories, but it's very open-ended.
Mm-hmm.
So that I feel like is more appropriate rather than assessing them on did you follow the step-by-step
Oh,
instructions.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, these most of these projects have been pretty much written as tutorials, and so the goal is to see if you can put this all together. There hasn't been a whole lot where I just sort of said, "Here's the final product. Can you make it?" And so yeah, I think that you might be better off making you could certainly keep things more open ended. Here's the goal: make a a project that does such and such, and then not go into any of the details. Just say, pick the blocks from these categories. I agree. I think that might be a better way of doing it because you're right. The projects that we've written, for the most part, they are very detailed and they really are more of just sort of expanding upon the tutorial. I think the reason I'm doing this like this is because this isn't really a traditional classroom sort of teaching environment. My goal is to get more teachers using this, and so I need to get them. I need to get all of you and everyone else who is participating in the workshop sort of up to speed. Um, so yeah, it might be that maybe in retrospect I probably should have had some more open-ended type projects, but um, you've got the ones that you've got. And if you look at that other website that I mentioned, the Beauty, Joy, and Awe, so this one has got um, a lot more sort of open-ended stuff. This is designed for, I think, probably freshmen at UC Berkeley. So they definitely are sort of. If I look at a meter and I look at easy versus hard, this is sort of leaning towards the more difficult side. But then again, they probably have, you know, 30 TAs helping out in all of this. So they probably have lots and lots of support stuff. Um,
Okay.
let me see. Okay, are there any specific questions about any of the tutorials or any of the projects that you've seen so far? Does anyone have any? Are there any sort of outstanding issues at this point?
Can we make a list of projects like what should be we introducing first to students and then what should be the way, because here we learned it all together doing the projects, all the different things. is it possible to make it little bit more organized so that we can really follow it through?
Well, organization is not my strong suit. I tried to provide sort of, I mean, I guess I, I did sort of to a certain extent. I think I started off with some stuff with motion. I mean, if I take a look at what we've actually got on the website, let me just see here. I think there was some method to my madness. Um, we started off with we talked about the interface, and then we talked about motion, and then we talked about variables, and then we talked about building your own blocks. And you're right. I interwove various aspects of Snap in it. You're right, and I don't have a. It's not like a textbook where I've got like a list of topics, but I could certainly see. If I had to pick like an order in which I could do things, um, I would. You have to start with motion, but you sort of have to start with control, right? I mean, you have because you want to have some way of triggering the scripts, and
Okay.
then motion is probably the best place to start because it's the most dynamic and the most exciting. And as long as I would do motion and control, and then I would come and look at the pen because as long as I'm moving things around, I probably want to move the pen up and down.
Okay.
So I would start with those. And then I would say, all right, I've got things moving. Maybe I want to sense when things happen. So I would probably, and partially this depends on your audience, and what you're trying to teach. So if you were like working with younger kids, you might work with looks more, and switching costumes and applying various graphic effects, which we did very, very little of. Although in Project 3, I think we had some stuff going on.
Mm.
And then I would think, okay, I've got things moving around. I want to be able to see if something is touching something and then react. So that would lead me back to the control to talk about decision making. When I teach a conventional computer science class, I have a very systematic way in which I do things, and we do this topic, and then we do that topic, and then we do the third topic. I think that what I really, really like about Snap is that you can play around with it, right? You can sort of jump from place to place. You don't have to necessarily. I, while I appreciate the need to be systematic, I also like the fact that Snap lets you just go out and explore on your own. And part of the my very rigidly written projects notwithstanding, part of the joy of Snap is the ability to just put things together and see where they take you. And so um, I'll see if I can come up with a list. I'll sort of have like a curriculum of sorts, and I'll try and post it because I probably should. But at the same time, part of me is rebelling against that, very mildly rebelling against that, thinking it's really the whole part of the great joy of Snap is it's just sort of like it's like you standing there on the edge of the Atlantic Ocean and there's a whole ocean in front of you and a whole new world you can just go and explore. Okay, that got a little bit too poetic, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Rather than have to sort of systematically go through things, I think if you explain how the blocks work, give some examples, and then say to kids, go and play, they can probably go and play. And as I say that, I'm feeling guiltier and guiltier about what James had said about the fact that my projects are really very um, very systematic. But
Yeah.
you know,
Yes.
this is my first time sort of teaching this, and again, part of this is just a lack of the somewhat feeling of isolation I felt when as I was working on these because I wasn't getting a lot of feedback. I realize now that these. I mean, this is helping me a great deal in spite of the fact that it sounds like I'm doing all the teaching. Um, hearing from you. Um, Let me see. Okay, so um, does anyone have? So I'm now going to take requests for your last project. So first of all, since I've only given three projects, I could make this sort of a more open-ended project, or maybe I should do, James, what you're talking about, those two parts. I could have one part be open-ended. Here's the idea. And in fact, there have been a couple of times in my written documentation where I've said, see if you can figure this out. If not, do this. So I do sort of do that in my documentation. I'm thinking with the last project, I'm going to try and I'm going to describe the project and say, go have at it. And if you're stuck, and maybe I'll have a sort of a more detailed description. Does that sound like a good way to do it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Something I was going to add earlier when we were talking, I had to step away for a minute, but when I taught Scratch in the classroom and I did it was with sixth graders,
Mm-hmm.
and I started out with a lot of like you were saying, the control, the motion, because of that level and the costume changes. And then we actually read a book, and then on their final project, they had a scoring guide, and they had to describe a certain chapter, and then within that scoring guide they had so many components they had to use in the project. So I didn't say how it had to be used, but I had certain things I wanted them to show me that they knew how to utilize them in their own way without telling them exactly how to do it.
I see.
So I don't know, that's just a different way to do it. I don't know if that will help anybody else, but they had a checklist of what all they need to have in there, and had to figure out how to use those pieces for that project.
Well, did you give them a particular project to achieve, or just they had to use these blocks?
They had it. We had read Number of the Stars, and each student was assigned a particular chapter, and they needed to summarize the events in that chapter using.
I see.
They had to use broadcast and receive. They had to change the stage at least once. They had to have costume changes. They had to have movement. It had to be interactive, so it couldn't just be when the green flag is clicked. They had to have multiple things going on. So,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I don't know, just another way to approach. I think maybe some other people in here were wondering ways that they might have the students do it, but I don't know.
Right. I
I
think
just thought I'd throw that out there.
yeah.
Yeah, it was helpful because to me, like when I'm teaching math, it's very systematic. So everything like it's planned, you need to do this and you need to do that. So I think this is a different approach and I will experiment with it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And for the middle school level, one of the things that I started to is I had them in the very beginning when they were learning change their stage to the XY axis background, and that gave them a lot better understanding. And some of the sixth graders hadn't had that XY axis exposure, maybe vaguely, but they didn't totally know, where was the positive section and negative section and that sort of thing. So on the math side, it was good to incorporate that part.
Yeah,
But you might be upper level too.
I'm not. One of the things about the online version of Snap is it doesn't have like a lot of costumes or anything, and so I don't think, for instance, I don't think there's a costume for the stage that. Let me see. I mean, if you choose like background, is there a background for? No, I don't. Oh no, I'm sorry. I take it you're right. There's the XY grid. Okay, there we go. So yeah, I can see how that would be useful. I did one thing at one point where I said, just go ahead and turn on the XY positions so you can see what they are. So I should go back to my sprite here. There we go. So you can turn on the XY position. So you can sort of see it, and you can drag the sprite around. But yeah, I guess this makes it a little bit more visible.
Yeah. Well, and you're saying to turn that on. I think in Scratch, isn't it at the bottom or something as you move? I was thinking, or even, I don't know. I was thinking that you could see the movement of the their location, either at the bottom or maybe
Oh, yeah.
over where your script goes. But turning that on, like you're saying, would be a great way too, so
Yeah,
to
if you
get a better understanding.
right. Yeah, I think you're thinking about sensing. In addition to the XY position of a sprite, let me turn those off. You have sensing for the mouse. So if I turn those on, then this will show me.
Ah,
Yeah, you're right. I don't have to drag. I could just deal with the mouse directly. So there's like approximately 0, 0, and X and Y sort of bouncing around. So yeah, that would be another way of doing that. I think there are all sorts of things. If you looked at the mathematical aspects of this, there's a tremendous amount that you could do. There's a tremendous amount that I thought about doing, but I thought it might scare people off with fractals. There's a lot of neat sort of fractal stuff like drawing snowflakes and drawing trees and so forth. But I was thinking, this is only supposed to be sort of an introduction to Snap, and it would be, for some people would be fine. For some people, I thought I'd sort of get too far off into the weeds, and so I didn't do it. But you can do some pretty sophisticated mathematical stuff with this. You could, I mean, because of the way that Snap is engineered, you could use this in a CS1 class if you really decided that your goal was to teach how to solve problems rather than just a programming language. Then you could teach an entire computer science curriculum. Frankly, you could get halfway towards data structures and just do it within Snap. It might be a little bit more awkward. I think after a while you have to do a lot of dragging in Scratch, or in Snap rather, and so that might be a little bit challenging. But anyway, okay. I think we said, I'm not sure what time we said we were going to go to, but I think one last thing. So does anyone have any particular requests for last projects?
I have a request, not necessarily for a project, but if there could be a way for us to share our projects with one another. Sometimes I learn a lot by viewing other people's work.
Okay. What I'll do is I'll send an appeal out on the website, and I will get whoever wants to share their project. I'll just have them. They'll put it on the cloud and email. Well, we can. What do you think? Would it be better off if you put it in the cloud? It might disappear. I could just have people send me the project, and then I could post it. I'm trying to figure out which would be better.
Moodle have an area a message area where students can post?
Oh, that's right. Because I mean, all we can do is I could just set up one more forum here. Well, I don't think I got a lot of people participating in this last forum. Did I get anybody? No, I did not. Okay, so ideas for projects. Here, this is already here. Do you have any interesting ideas for projects, or maybe projects? I did this about ideas for new projects. That was sort of, as you can tell, I didn't get a whole bunch of people participating, but I could just create another forum, post your favorite projects here. What do you think? Would that work better? Do you want me to just gather lists and then create one document that points?
No, I think that would work fine, and that way students would feel like they weren't bothering you.
If they just do it themselves?
Yeah.
Okay, I will add one more forum here, and I might even take this one, ideas for, and maybe modify it if I can edit it. I'm not sure if I can edit something once it's been created, but yeah, I will. And Logan is here, and so Logan will remind me, because Logan has a memory, and so Logan, we'll do that. We'll put in, there are two things we have to get in here. We have to get a mechanism for being able to record projects, and then I need to create sort of maybe a more systematic list of blocks in the order in which they might be explored. So I will try and do that. Okay, so since I haven't heard any suggestions for new projects. I'll tell you one I was thinking of, it was to do like a sort of a little music synthesizer. You would play music and it would record it, and then you could play it back, and that would get some coverage of lists, which is what I would like. It would also get coverage of well, let's see, what else would we get coverage of? I mean, I might wrap something up into a block. Or I was also thinking of an example where we would do like a Trivial Pursuit game, where you would like ask questions and people would have to answer them and get scored on them. I don't know if any, or I could do something else entirely. Or do you want to just be surprised?
Maybe surprised. It's hard to make a decision.
Yeah, that's right. Because in a way, it's sort of like you're in this role, you're like the students, and it's just like you don't want to say anything because it's sort of like the right not to incriminate yourself. Yeah. All right. Sorry, Jay.
What about one where it has some guided support and has an overall idea, but then also an option that has just like basic requirements you have to have for it? So if you say you want to incorporate lists, then in some way your project has to use lists.
Well, I think I'm going to do something like that. So I'm going to describe the. Well, you want it to be very general. Just do something with lists.
Yeah. So like if your idea is like you were saying Trivial Pursuit, so like you give more of a description along with that one, or you can say if you don't want to do Trivial Pursuit and make some other kind of game that involves lists.
Okay, I will try and keep it a little bit more open, but I will at some point. So I'll start off. I may have a couple of different projects. I will describe them in general terms, and then I will have specific set of instructions for those people who want to work through it systematically. What I would suggest to everyone is see if you can figure it out first, and then when you get stuck, then go ahead and peek at the instructions. It's just sort of like crosswords. Don't look in the back until you've exhausted your vocabulary. So, all right. Well, I have to get ready for a meeting at 2, and there's a horde of students gathering outside my door looking for me. So I think we're gonna wrap it up here. And thank you everyone for participating in this webinar and for participating in this track. I want to remind people one more time that if you're planning to do this in the classroom and you want some help, thanks to the power of gotowebinar.com, I could, if you wanted me to like participate in some way, I'd be glad to do it. Or if you want to bounce ideas off of me, I'd be glad to talk to you about it. Everyone who's been working on this at Northwest, we feel passionately about getting this into the classroom, because if it's not in the classroom, if it's not happening in K-12, I mean, that's the main reason why we're not seeing people go into go into computer science and studying technology. It's just because I know that all of you, obviously, by being part of this workshop, are dedicated towards this. But we want to get as many people as possible aware of this. So, without sounding too maudlin about it, I hope we can help you. And just after the workshop, I'll probably at some point send up a follow-up survey, maybe at the end of the year, just to sort of see how people are doing. And but again, if you want to talk about this stuff, please do so.
Okay. Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
all right. Well, thanks so much, and great talking to all of you. And hopefully we will meet online or in person at some future date.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks. See ya.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.